Right now, you probably showered this morning. You didn't think about it. You just did it. Hot water, soap, maybe shampoo. The whole thing took 8 minutes, and you've already forgotten it happened. But here's a question nobody really asks. What did humans do for the other 300,000 years? Before soap, before plumbing, before the concept of hygiene even existed as a word? Were they just dirty, covered in grime, smelling like the earth they slept on unbothered? Or is something else going on here? Because when archaeologists started digging into this question, what they found wasn't chaos. It wasn't filth. What they found was a system, ancient, instinctive, and in some ways more sophisticated than we give it credit for. The story of human cleanliness doesn't start with soap. It starts with something much older, something built into the body itself. Go back far enough, 200,000 years, maybe more, and early Homo sapiens were living in a world that required constant physical contact with the environment. Mud, ash, animal fat, plant resin. Their skin absorbed all of it every single day. And yet the archaeological record doesn't suggest these people were passive about it. What it suggests is that they were problem solvers. The oldest evidence we have comes from burial sites and cave settlements across Africa and Europe. Researchers have found ochre, a red iron-rich mineral, at dozens of sites going back at least 100,000 years. For a long time, the assumption was that ochre was purely decorative, body paint, ritual markings, and it probably was all of that. But ochre also has natural antiseptic properties. It inhibits certain bacterial growth on skin. Some researchers now argue that its application may have served a dual purpose, social and practical, ritual and hygienic, all at once. The line between art and medicine may not have existed the way we draw it today. Then there's fat. Animal fat rendered from cooking was one of the most versatile substances early humans had access to. Rubbing fat into skin wasn't vanity. It protected against insect bites, cold wind, sun damage, and cracking skin that cracks bleeds. Bleeding in the ancient world could be a death sentence. The fat was maintenance. And water is where the story gets more interesting. Most early human settlements were built near water. Rivers, lakes, coastlines, springs. Researchers have long understood this in terms of drinking water and food supply. But water also meant washing, and the evidence suggests that early humans used it deliberately and regularly. There are shell middens, ancient trash heaps left by coastal communities where archaeologists have found comb-like tools made from bone and shell. These weren't for eating. The spacing and structure suggest they were used on hair. Hair grooming, it turns out, is one of the most consistent behaviors documented across early human cultures on every continent. It's not cosmetic. Head lice have been a human companion for a very long time, and the pressure to manage them was real constant, and life or death in communities where illness spread fast. And grooming is also social. Primates do it. Early humans did it. Sitting with someone and working through their hair is one of the most ancient forms of trust and bonding that exists. Hygiene and community were not separate things. They were the same thing. But what about actual cleaning agents? What did people use before soap? This is where the evidence gets genuinely surprising. Soap as a manufactured product appears around 2800 BCE in ancient Babylon, a mixture of water, alkali, and cassia oil recorded on clay tablets. Ancient Egyptians were using similar formulations by 1550 BCE. But here's what that timeline actually tells us. Soap was invented because something already existed before it. You don't formalize a technology unless you already have informal versions of it, and those informal versions were everywhere. Soapwort, a wild plant that grows across Europe, Asia, and parts of North America, produces saponins when its leaves and roots are crushed with water. People living near soapwort didn't need anyone to explain chemistry to them. They just noticed that rubbing the plant on their skin worked. Plant evidence from ancient settlement in the Middle East suggests soapwort and similar plants were gathered and used intentionally, not just stumbled upon. Wood ash is another one. Ash mixed with water creates a mildly alkaline solution that cuts through grease and lifts grime. This same chemistry is technically what makes soap work. Prehistoric people didn't know the word alkaline, but they figured it out. Multiple cultures across multiple continents independently discovered that ash was useful for cleaning. That's not coincidence, that's convergent human problem solving. Clay was used extensively in the ancient Middle East and Mediterranean. Fine clay applied to skin absorbs oil, lifts dirt, and exfoliates the surface layer. The Romans would later perfect this into a practice, applying clay and oil, then scraping the mixture off with a curved metal tool called a strigil. But the behavior predates Rome by thousands of years. Now here's the part that changes the picture entirely. In 2019, researchers studying ancient dental calculus, the hardened plaque on prehistoric teeth, found traces of plant compounds that appear to have been deliberately chewed or processed for oral hygiene. Ancient humans were dealing with their teeth, sticks from specific trees. Neem, for example, which has natural antibacterial compounds, have been used as chewing sticks across Africa, the Middle East, and South Asia for thousands of years. The miswick stick that appears in ancient texts is not a medieval invention. And then there's the question of smell. Juniper, cedar, mint, and various resins have been found at ancient campsites and burial sites in quantities that don't make sense for cooking or fuel alone. Some researchers suggest these plants were burned or worn specifically for their scent, which is to say, people were thinking about how they smelled to others. That awareness didn't appear with modern civilization, it appears to be ancient. The Romans get most of the credit in popular history for ancient hygiene, the public baths, the aqueducts, the obsession with cleanliness as civic virtue, and it's true. The Roman bathing culture was elaborate and genuinely remarkable, but it also masked something important. Roman baths were communal. Thousands of people shared the same water, which was rarely changed. The bath was social before it was sanitary, and some historians argue that the real hygiene work happened not in the public pools, but in the private routines people maintained on their own, with oil and ash and plants that have no monument built to them. The ancient world cleaned itself. It just didn't look like our world doing it. So why does this matter? Because somewhere in this story is a corrective to how we think about the past. The popular image of prehistoric humans is still somehow one of people who were simply enduring life, dirty, cold, reactive, waiting for civilization to arrive and fix things. But that image doesn't hold up under evidence. These were people who noticed which plants lathered, who understood that ash changed water, who built grooming into their social rituals because they understood that managing the body was managing survival, who observed over generations that certain behaviors kept people healthier, and pass those observations forward as habit and tradition. That is not waiting, that is figuring it out. And modern hygiene is genuinely remarkable. Soap, antibiotics, water treatment, these things have saved hundreds of millions of lives. None of that is up for debate. But the next time you stand in a hot shower and reach for the bottle without thinking, consider what that automatic gesture is built on. Hundreds of thousands of years of human beings paying attention to their bodies, to the plants around them, to each other. The soap is new, the instinct is ancient, and the instinct got us here.